My family gave all three houses to my brother. I moved to Canada and never looked back. When my parents handed all three townhomes from the land settlement over to my brother, their reasoning was unshakable. You're a daughter. You'll marry into someone else's family someday. This family's property stays with the men. I didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't throw a fit like they expected. I signed the disclaimer of inheritance right there in front of the whole family, then turned around and liquidated everything I owned. My car, my savings, every last thing I'd built for myself in Atlanta. 2 weeks later, I booked a one-way ticket to Vancouver, Canada, and cut every last tie back home in Georgia. On Thanksgiving Day, my mom called me on FaceTime, her tone as entitled as if I owed her something. Your brother's short 30 grand for a house down payment. Can't get married without it. You make easy money out there in Canada, so wire it over. The whole family's counting on you. I smiled softly, staring at the maple trees blazing crimson outside my apartment window. Mom, I already bought a house out here. I'm staying for good. Don't call me about family stuff ever again. The line went dead silent. Très cool. Chapter 1. My name is Jenna Mitchell. I'm 26 years old. Back home in Hazelwood, my parents had another name for me, the waste of money. They never said it to my face, but I'd heard it 100 times. Muttered over the kitchen sink while washing dishes, whispered into her flip phone while I was in the next room, tossed around in the corners of family cookouts when they thought I couldn't hear. Hazelwood was a tiny blip of a town in North Georgia, population 800, with one stoplight and more Baptist churches than gas stations. A few months prior, the state had seized our family's 12-acre farm to build a new highway bypass, and the settlement gave us 3 brand-new townhomes on the edge of town. One 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit with a tiny yard, one 2-bedroom, and a compact 1-bedroom starter home. Altogether, they were valued at roughly $675,000. More money than my family had ever seen in our lives. My brother Jake was 31, a shift supervisor at the local aluminum factory, making barely $17 an hour. He'd bounced between 7 jobs since dropping out of high school, and none of them had stuck. Most of his paycheck went to his lifted truck payment and his weekly beer runs with the boys. I'd worked my tail off to get into Georgia State, got a degree in supply chain management, and moved to Atlanta after graduation. 4 years in, I'd climbed from an entry-level admin role to a coordinator position, making $62,000 a year before taxes. It wasn't rich by Atlanta standards, but back in Hazelwood? To my family, I was basically a millionaire. The day the settlement was finalized, my dad called me out of the blue. I was at work, swamped with orders from a Canadian client, my head throbbing from staring at spreadsheets all morning. Jenna! His voice boomed through the phone, loud enough to make me hold the phone away from my ear. We got the settlement, 3 whole houses. I'd been happy for them, at first. Finally, after all those years scraping by, Dad blowing out his knee on a construction site back when I was 12, never able to work full-time again, Mom bagging groceries at the Piggly Wiggly to pay the bills. Things were finally looking up. I'd even let myself daydream for 10 seconds. Maybe they'd give me the 1-bedroom. Just a little something to help with a down payment on a place of my own in Atlanta. I should have known better. I drove home for the 4th of July weekend, and the second I walked through the front door, I could feel the tension. The living room was packed. Uncle Ray, Uncle Dale, Aunt Linda, a couple of my cousins. It looked like a full-on family summit. Dad sat in his recliner in the middle, 3 shiny property deeds spread out on the coffee table in front of him like trophies. Mom stood at his side, wearing this smug, triumphant look I'd never seen on her before. Jake was slouched on the couch, beer in one hand, not even bothering to look up when I walked in. Jenna's here, Dad said, flat as day-old soda. Sit down. Got something to go over with you. I set my duffel by the door and grabbed a folding chair in the corner. Dad cleared his throat like he was giving a speech at church. Me and your mom talked it over. The 3-bedroom and the 2-bedroom go to Jake. The 1-bedroom's for me and your mom to live in. He paused, then dropped the hammer. When we're gone, that one goes to Jake too. Now, you're a girl, he said, like he was explaining the sky is blue. You'll get married, take your husband's last name, be part of his family. The Mitchell property stays with the Mitchell men. That's just how it is. He looked at me like he expected me to nod and say, "Yes, sir." I said nothing. The room went quiet for 10 long seconds. Then Uncle Ray cleared his throat. "Jenna, your dad's right. Jake's the only son. The family legacy goes through him." Uncle Dale nodded right along with him. "You'll get married and have your own life. Ain't no sense in a daughter carrying over family property." Aunt Linda put on her sweetest smile, the one she used when she wanted something. "You're such a smart, good girl. You won't fight your brother over this now, will you?" Jake finally flicked his eyes up, snubbed his cigarette out in an ashtray. "Hey, don't worry about it, Squirt. When I make it big, I'll take care of you." He didn't even look at me when he said it. I scanned every face in that room. Every single one of them looked like this was the most obvious, natural thing in the world. Like gravity. Like the sun coming up in the east. I opened my mouth to say something. To argue. To ask why I didn't deserve even a sliver of it. After all the money I'd sent home over the years. After all the times I'd bailed Jake out when he got behind on his truck payment. But then, I closed it. What was the point? They hadn't called me here to discuss this. They'd called me here to tell me. I glanced at my mom. She looked away, turned toward the kitchen, and mumbled, "Oh, hush now. Can't we all just get along?" Get along. Peace and quiet, bought with my pride. That night, I lay in the twin bed I'd slept in since I was 12, staring at the ceiling, and didn't sleep a wink. Through the wall, I could hear Jake on the phone, laughing and bragging to his friend about trading in his truck for a newer model. I pulled up my bank app on my phone. 4 years of working 60-hour weeks, of skipping vacations, of packing my lunch every single day. $38,000 in savings. Not a fortune, but not nothing. I lay there until the sun came up, and by dawn, I'd made my decision. Chapter 2. I got up early the next morning and headed to the kitchen to help Mom fix breakfast. She was stirring grits on the stove, and her back went stiff when she saw me. "Mom, I thought about it," I said, slicing up a tomato for the plate. "I'm fine with the houses. No hard feelings." Her spoon froze mid-stir. She turned to me, eyes wide with surprise, then melted into relief. "I knew you'd be reasonable," she said, patting my hand. "Your dad's got a hard head, but he loves you. You know that." I didn't say anything to that. "But I have one condition," I said. She tensed right back up. "What kind of condition?" "I want to sign a formal disclaimer of inheritance. Put it in writing. All 3 properties go to Jake, and I give up any and all claim to them. No takebacks." She blinked, clearly thrown. "Why on earth would we need that? We're family. A handshake's enough." "No," I said, calm as I could be. "It has to be in writing. Otherwise, what if I change my mind later?" She stared at me, spoon still in her hand, for a good 10 seconds. I think she thought I was being dramatic, or saying it out of spite. I wasn't. I meant every word. After breakfast, I brought it up in front of everyone. Dad frowned at me like I'd grown a second head. "What in the hell is wrong with you?" "Dad, you said all the houses go to Jake, right? So let's sign a paper. I give up all my rights. That way nobody has to worry about me coming back later and making a fuss. Everybody wins." Jake looked up from his phone, surprised for half a second, then grinned. "Come on, Jenna. You think I'd cheat you out of anything?" I ignored him. "Uncle Ray's a notary public, right? He can draw it up and witness it. That's official." Uncle Ray had retired from being a high school principal and did notary work on the side. He looked at Dad, then at me, and adjusted his glasses. Jenna, you sure about this? Once you sign, there's no undoing it. I've never been more sure of anything. Dad sat there scowling for a long minute, then finally huffed and nodded. Fine. If that's what she wants, do it. Uncle Ray wrote it out by hand, a full page of tight, neat script. It said that Jenna Mitchell voluntarily and permanently waived all rights, claims, and interests to the 3 settlement properties, that all ownership would pass solely to Jacob Mitchell, and that she would never contest the arrangement for any reason. I read every single word. Then I signed it and pressed my thumb into the ink pad next to my name. Jake signed next, faster than I'd ever seen him do anything. Mom and Dad signed. Uncle Ray signed and stamped it as witness. When it was done, I folded the paper up and slipped it into my purse. Mom stood there fidgeting like she wanted to say something. Finally, she sighed and said, "Jenna, don't you go blaming us. We just don't have much, and—" "I don't blame you," I said with a small smile. "You're right, Mom. Family peace is what matters most." That afternoon, I drove back to Atlanta. On the highway, watching the Georgia pine trees blur past, I couldn't name exactly what I was feeling. It hurt, sure. But the worst of the hurt had already happened the night before, sitting in that living room surrounded by people who saw me as an afterthought. What was left wasn't anger, it was cold, sharp clarity. From that day on, I did 2 things. First, I sold everything. My 3-year-old Corolla went on Facebook Marketplace for $7,200. I gave up my apartment, sold all my furniture, my kitchen stuff, even my books, for another $2,800. Add that to my $38,000 in savings, and I had just over $48,000 cash. Second, I researched immigration. My degree was in supply chain, I had 4 years of professional experience, and my English was obviously fluent. I'd done a little work with Canadian clients in my job, so I knew the market. I looked at Australia, New Zealand, Canada. I settled on Canada, the federal skilled worker program through Express Entry. My age, education, language score, and work experience added up. I was right over the cutoff line. I spent 2 weeks gathering every document I needed, submitted my profile into the Express Entry pool, and waited. While I waited, I went to work like normal. I worked overtime. I called home once a week like nothing was wrong. Mom would test the waters sometimes, bring up the houses. Jake's thinking about renovating the 2-bedroom. You think that's a good idea? Sounds great. Whatever he wants. You making enough money out there? Want me to send you a little something? No, I'm fine. Thanks, Mom. Every time I hung up, I'd sit on the fire escape of my tiny sublet and stare out at the Atlanta skyline. I'd lived there 4 years, but it never really felt like mine. Just like Hazelwood never really felt like mine. 2 months later, I got the email. ITA. Invitation to apply. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed my laptop, walked downstairs, and went to the diner down the street and ordered a big plate of chili cheese fries and a Coke. The fries were so hot they burned my mouth. My eyes watered. It wasn't from the heat. The next few months were a blur of paperwork. Medical exams, police background checks, proof of funds. I hired an immigration lawyer for $2,500 to make sure everything was perfect. I didn't breathe a word of it to anyone back home. Nobody knew I'd bought a one-way ticket. Nobody knew I'd gotten my permanent residence confirmation. Nobody knew I'd already rented a small basement apartment in Richmond through a rental agency. To my family, I was still the same old Jenna, working in Atlanta, sending money home every month, obedient, reasonable, good. The girl who'd signed away 3 houses without a fight. I didn't tell them I was leaving until 3 days before my flight. Mom, I'm moving out of the country. There was a long pause on the line. Moving where? What are you talking about? Canada. Vancouver. I got permanent residency. My flight's in 3 days. Have you lost your damn mind? Her voice went sharp, shrill. When did you do all that? Why didn't you talk to us first? Talk to you about what? My voice was steady. You didn't talk to me about the houses, did you? Silence again. 30 seconds later, her tone softened, thick with tears. Jenna, baby, is this about the houses? You come on home, we'll talk about it. We can fix. Mom, it's not about that. I signed the paper and I meant it. I just want to live my own life now. All by yourself? All the way up there? You don't know nobody. What are you even chasing? I didn't answer, because she would have never understood what I was running from. Chapter 3. The first 3 months in Vancouver, I ran on pure adrenaline. I settled in Richmond, a neighborhood where you could get by speaking nothing but Cantonese if you wanted. My place was a basement apartment, $850 a month, with a tiny window at ground level that only showed the feet of people walking by on the sidewalk. My landlady was Mrs. Hale, a retired teacher who lived upstairs with her husband. She walked me through the lease the day I moved in, collected first and last month's rent plus a damage deposit, and warned me no loud music after 10 p.m. I didn't mind. I'd lived in worse places in Atlanta. Once I was settled, I threw myself into job hunting. I'd scored an 8.5 on my IELTS, so my English was fine, but without Canadian work experience, landing a supply chain role was an uphill battle. I sent out over 120 resumes, got maybe 40 callbacks, did 8 interviews. The first month I was out the door by 8 a.m. every day, backpack stuffed with printed resumes, riding the SkyTrain back and forth between Vancouver, Burnaby, and Surrey. Some days I had 2 interviews, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and I'd kill the 2 hours in between at a McDonald's, nursing a coffee, and using the free Wi-Fi. By the second month, I had 2 offers on the table. One was a logistics coordinator role at a trading company in Burnaby, $22 an hour. The other was a customer service job at a Chinese shipping company in Richmond, $20 an hour. I took the first one. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was in my field and there was room to move up. My first day on the job, I stood in the lobby and straightened my blazer in the glass door. Underneath, I had a thrifted white button-down and black slacks. The whole outfit cost me less than $60 at Value Village. But when I looked at my reflection, my eyes were bright. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was building something for me. Once work was steady, I set my next goal. Buy a place. Not a big house, just a small condo. 50 square meters even. Something that was mine. I did the math. At $22 an hour full-time, I took home roughly $2,800 a month after taxes. Add the $48,000 I'd brought with me, converted to about $62,000 CAD, and I was still nowhere near a down payment for a Vancouver condo. But I'd learned a long time ago, you don't get ahead by saving, you get ahead by working. I volunteered for every overtime shift, took on extra projects, picked up 2 side gigs on the weekends, customer service for a small e-commerce store, and tutoring a local kid in English. I slept 5 hours a night, if I was lucky. The dark circles under my eyes were so bad I looked like I'd been in a fight. But I could handle it. I'd done the same thing in Atlanta. 4 months after I landed, I got a bank notification, a transfer from my mom, $2,000 USD. The memo line said, "For spending money." I stared at those 4 words for a long time. Spending money. $2,000 just for spending. Growing up, I'd never had spending money. In high school, I got $150 a month for groceries and gas. Jake got $400 a month just for hanging out. In college, I'd taken out student loans and worked 20 hours a week in the cafeteria to cover rent. After I started working, I sent $400 home every month, and Mom never once said I didn't have to. Now she was sending me $2,000, calling it spending money. I didn't accept it. After 24 hours, it automatically bounced back. The next day, she called. Jenna, why didn't you take the money? Mom, I don't need it. Keep it for yourself. Oh, don't be stubborn. I know it's hard out there on your own. A mother worries about her baby. I almost laughed. Worried? Where was that worry when they signed 3 houses over to Jake? Where was that worry when I was working 2 jobs in college to pay rent? I knew what that $2,000 was. It wasn't kindness. It was a test. She was checking if the line was still hooked, if I was still reachable. I didn't call her out on it. I just said, "Really, Mom? I'm fine. I can take care of myself." Then I hung up. 6 months after I moved to Vancouver, the big ask came. Jake was getting married. His fiancée was Mandy, a girl he'd met at the factory. Her parents ran a hardware store in town, and they were firm. No house down payment, no wedding. $30,000 short. Mom called me, and her tone was so entitled you'd think I owed her the money. "Ha, Jenna, your brother's 30 grand short on his down payment. Can't get married without it. You make easy money up there in Canada, so wire it over. The whole family's counting on you." I was quiet for 3 seconds. Then I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. "Mom, do you even know what I do for work up here? You work in a trade company, don't you? You make good money." "I make $22 an hour. I take home about $2,800 CAD a month. That's roughly $2,100 USD. I made more than that in Atlanta. You think this is easy money?" She stumbled for a second, then found her next argument. "Well, you're single. You don't have no bills. You can save faster. He needs this. He's your brother, for heaven's sake." My brother. He was my brother when they signed over 3 houses. He was my brother when they spent every dime on his trucks and his toys and his mistakes. He had 3 houses, a steady job, a fiancé. And somehow the whole family expected me, some girl starting over in a foreign country, to pay for his wedding house. "Mom, I don't have 30,000, I said. "Quit lying. You worked all those years in Atlanta, you sold your car. I know you got it." "I spent most of it on flights, immigration fees, first and last month's rent. I'm barely scraping by." "Well, how much you got? Send 10,000 at least. That's not asking much." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Outside my window, Vancouver cherry blossoms were blooming, pale pink petals drifting past the glass. And on the other end of the phone, my mother was calculating how much more she could squeeze out of me. "Mom, I need to tell you something." My voice was calm even. "I already bought a place out here. I'm staying, and I'm not sending any more money home. Don't call me about this stuff again." The line went dead silent. I could hear her breathing, sharp and ragged, like someone had just punched her in the gut. "What did you just say?" "I said I bought a condo in Vancouver. I'm settling down here. I won't be sending money home anymore. Figure out Jake's wedding on your own." "Jenna Mitchell!" Her voice shot up 3 octaves, shrill enough to make me hold the phone away from my ear. "Have you lost your ever-loving mind? You bought a house? With what money? What are you doing up there anyway? Some kind of no-good business?" I blinked. Then I laughed again. Not a bitter laugh. A genuine, disbelieving laugh. In her head, there was only one way a 26-year-old woman could buy a house on her own. She must be doing something dirty. It never crossed her mind that I worked 16-hour days, that I'd aced my immigration tests, that I'd sent out 100 resumes and fought for every single thing I had. It never crossed her mind that her daughter could be capable, because if she admitted that, she'd have to admit she was wrong. Wrong to give everything to Jake. Wrong to write me off as just a daughter who'd marry out. Wrong to push away the kid who'd actually had the drive to make something of herself. That was too heavy a truth to carry. So she'd rather believe I was up to no good. "I'm not doing anything wrong," I said, slow and clear. "Every penny I have is earned. You can believe it or not. I don't care. You tell me right now where you got that money. Did you marry some old Canadian man? Is that it?" I hung up. Not out of anger, because there was no point in talking anymore. I sat there by the window for a long time, watching cherry petals drift to the ground. Then I opened my contacts app. I went to the family group: Dad, Mom, Jake, Uncle Ray, Uncle Dale, Aunt Linda. One by one, I deleted every single number. Then I turned off my phone, went to the kitchen, and made myself a bowl of noodles with 2 fried eggs on top. 1 egg for the life I left behind. 1 egg for the life I was building. Chapter 4. For a week after that call, my old phone blew up nonstop. Dad called first. I didn't answer. Then Jake. I didn't answer. Then Uncle Ray, Uncle Dale, Aunt Linda. One after another. I didn't answer any of them. It wasn't that I was scared. I just knew exactly what they'd say. "How could you do this to your parents? Where's your gratitude? Think you're too good for us now?" I'd already heard all of it the day I signed the disclaimer. I didn't need to hear it again. But they weren't about to let me go that easy. Jake somehow tracked down the main line at my office and called the front desk. The receptionist transferred it to me, confused. "Jenna? There's a call from Georgia. Says he's your brother." I picked up, and Jake's voice came roaring through the line. "Jenna, what the hell is wrong with you? You put Mom in the hospital. She had a blood pressure spike. She's in the ER." My chest tightened for half a second. Then I got a hold of myself. Mom had high blood pressure, sure. She'd had it for years. But she managed it with meds, and she'd never once been admitted overnight for it. "What hospital?" I said, flat. "Hazelwood General. You get your ass back here right now." "Which floor? What room number?" Silence. 2 full seconds of it. "What's it matter what room? Just get here." "I want to talk to her doctor. I need to know exactly what's wrong and what her treatment plan is." More silence. Then he said the line that killed whatever tiny scrap of doubt I'd had left. "Quit asking all these stupid questions. Just get home and you can see her." I smiled, cold and sharp. If he'd yelled out a room number, even a fake one, I might have hesitated, might have wondered. But he didn't even bother to lie well. "Tell Mom to take her meds and rest up," I said. "If she's really in the hospital, make sure she uses her insurance. The coverage is pretty good for ER visits." I hung up. Then I called Hazelwood General myself. An old high school classmate of mine worked there as an ER nurse. "Hey, can you do me a favor? Check if a Carol Mitchell was admitted in the last 48 hours. ER or inpatient." 3 minutes later, she texted me back. "Nope. No one by that name. Not even a walk-in." Of course not. Mom wasn't sick. It was just another trap to get me to come home. Come home to what? Get yelled at by the whole family? Get cornered into writing a check for 30 grand? Go back to being the good, obedient daughter who takes whatever they dish out? No, I wasn't going back. After that, things went quiet for about 2 months. I poured every ounce of energy into work. I did my day job, picked up extra shifts, tutored on the weekends. My English got sharper. I picked up sharper. I picked up the local slang. I got faster at my job. My supervisor, Susan, this sharp, fair woman in her 40s, noticed. She gave me a raise, from $20 to $25 an hour. $3 doesn't sound like much, but it added up to almost $6,000 a year. I also studied for and got my freight forwarder certification, which carried a lot of weight in the industry. Things were getting better. 8 months after I landed, I saved up enough for a down payment. Not in downtown Vancouver. In Surrey, a suburb about 30 minutes from the city by SkyTrain, A two-bedroom condo, 800 square feet, $420,000 CAD. I put 10% down, $42,000. The mortgage was $1,600 a month, cheaper than rent. On closing day, I stood in the middle of the empty living room and spun around 3 times. Light wood floors, white walls, black quartz countertops in the kitchen. Outside the window, there was a big maple tree. In fall, it would turn bright, burning red. This was mine. Not the Mitchell family's, not Jake's, not anyone else's. Mine. I sat down on the floor, pulled my knees to my chest, and cried for about 10 minutes. Not sad tears. The kind of tears you cry when you've been holding your breath underwater for years and you finally break the surface. Moving day, Mrs. Hale helped me carry my boxes out to the moving truck. She stood on the porch watching me, her expression complicated. "You're the toughest young woman I've ever met," she said. "Thanks, Mrs. Hale. Take care of yourself out there, okay?" "I will." As I drove away, I saw her in the rearview mirror, waving. I thought about my mom. She'd never once stood on the porch and waved when I left for college, or for Atlanta. She'd just say, "Be safe," and turn around and go back inside. It wasn't that she didn't love me. It was that she'd always thought leaving was just what daughters did. No need to make a fuss. No need to miss them. Once I was settled in the new place, I did one more thing. I got a Canadian phone number and canceled my old Georgia number for good. That meant no one from back home could reach me by phone anymore. I knew it was final. I knew it was harsh. But I didn't have a choice. If I left that line open, they'd keep leeching off me, even from across an international border. $30,000 for a down payment was just the start. Next would be the wedding, then the baby, then daycare, then college tuition. On, forever. To them, I wasn't a daughter. I wasn't a sister. I was an ATM. One that never needed maintenance, never said no, just spit out cash whenever they asked. My money was family money. Jake's money was Jake's money. I thought changing my number would finally give me peace. I was wrong. When they couldn't reach me by phone, my relatives found another way. They tracked down people I knew in Vancouver. I still don't know how they did it. Probably scrolling through my old Facebook friends list, adding everyone they could find. One day, a girl I'd met through a local meetup group texted me out of the blue. "Hey Jenna, some guy who says he's your uncle added me on Facebook. Says your parents are worried sick, that you went missing. Wants me to help find you." I frowned. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing yet. Figured I'd ask you first. Everything okay? Can you do me a favor? Delete him. Tell him you don't have my contact info." "Sure thing. Family stuff?" "Yeah, pretty bad family stuff." "Got it. I won't say anything else." She was cool about it. But I knew this was just the start. If Uncle Ray found one person I knew, he'd find more. Every connection was a crack they could pry open. I spent that night locking down all my social media. I set my Facebook to private, blocked every single relative from back home, made my Instagram and LinkedIn private too. Scrubbed my work info down to just the city, no company name. When I was done, I sat on my couch and stared out at the maple tree. The leaves were just starting to turn red. Bright little splashes of color against the green. I remembered when I was 7 years old. We had a sugar maple in our front yard back home. Every fall, I'd pick up the pretty red leaves and press them between the pages of my storybooks. Jake caught me doing it once. Snatched the book right out of my hand, tore every leaf into tiny pieces. "That's my tree," he'd yelled. "You don't get to take my leaves." Dad had come out to see what the yelling was about. He'd looked at me, then ruffled Jake's hair. "He's right. That's the family tree. It'll be his someday. You'll get married and move away. You don't need it." I was 7. He was 12. I never picked up another maple leaf after that. Now I lived in a country famous for its maple leaves. Thousands of them. Everywhere you looked. Red, orange, gold, prettier than that old yard tree ever was. And none of them belonged to anyone. No one could claim them. No one could hoard them. They were just there, for anyone to look at, for anyone to pick up. No fighting required. Chapter 5. 10 months after I moved to Vancouver, I got a letter in the mail. A crumpled yellow envelope, with a US stamp on it, my address scrawled in messy, slanted handwriting. Return address: Carol Mitchell, Hazelwood, GA. My mom's handwriting. I turned it over in my hands for a long time before I opened it. The paper was torn out of a spiral notebook, lined, covered in her wobbly cursive. She'd never finished high school, and her spelling was always a little off, but she'd pressed down hard with the pen, like she was trying to punch the words through the page. Jenna, I miss you. How you holdin' up over there? You eatin' enough? You warm enough? Jake's wedding went through. We worked out the down payment. Your dad borrowed 10 grand from your uncles, and we scraped up the rest. Mandy moved in. She's a nice girl, just got a temper on her. Ain't been the same around here since you left. Your dad won't say it, but I know he mopes around the house missin' you. Come home, baby. I won't push you about the money no more. We can talk about the houses. We can fix this. Love. Mom, I read it 3 times. A little voice in my head said, go back. They're sorry. They've learned their lesson. But a louder, calmer voice said, no, they're not sorry. They're just broke. If I went back now, I wouldn't get hugs and apologies. I'd get another list of bills to pay, another round of guilt trips, another round of taking what's mine and calling it family. People like that don't change when you give them an inch. They take a mile. I'd already given them 3 houses. Next, they'd take 30,000, then 50, then everything. I folded the letter back up, put it in a drawer, and never wrote back. A month later, Jake sent me a friend request on Instagram. I have no idea how he found my new account, probably through some mutual acquaintance I'd forgotten about. The request said, "It's your brother. Add me." I hesitated for a long time, then hit accept. Not because I missed him, because I wanted to know what he wanted. The second I accepted, he sent me a wall of voice messages. I let them play one after another. Hey, Squirt, how you doing up there? Mom's blood pressure's been all over the place. Least you could do is call her. Mandy's pregnant. You're gonna be an aunt. Money's tight right now. Dad's knee's acting up. Can't pick up no side work. I'm the only one bringing in a check. You make good money up there. Think you could send a little home every month? Not much. 300-400 bucks? That's nothing to you. The last one made my stomach turn. Come on, Jenna. You're still a Mitchell. You can't just dump the whole family on me like this. I stared at my phone screen for a minute, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed one sentence. You got 3 houses. The family burden is yours to carry. I hit send. Then I deleted him. Not blocked. Deleted. Blocking feels like you care enough to push them away. Deleting is clean. Like they never existed. That night, I sat out on my balcony with a can of beer. Vancouver nights are quiet. You can hear the distant train whistle, low and long, like someone crying far away. I thought about when I was a kid. Every time Jake picked on me, every time he broke my things, every time he got me in trouble for no reason, I'd run to Mom, and she'd always say the same thing. He's your brother. Be the bigger person. Let him have it. I let him have it. I let him have 3 houses, $30,000, every bit of the family fortune. How much more was I supposed to let him have? My whole life? I finished the beer, went inside, and went to bed. The next morning, I got up, went to work, and kept going. 13 months after I landed, I got promoted. Susan put me forward for account manager, handling all of our Asia-Pacific clients. Base pay plus commission, it worked out to about $65,000 KD a year, roughly $48,000 USD. It wasn't rich, but it was enough. Enough to live comfortably, enough to save, enough to not worry about rent or groceries. I started building a life that was actually mine. I got a gym membership, bought a new laptop, signed up for health insurance. For the first time in my life, I spent money on myself without guilt. Growing up, every purchase came with a math problem. How much do I need to send home this month? What do I need to save for Jake's next mistake? What will Mom say if I buy this for myself? Not anymore. My money was mine. No one got to take it. But life never stays easy for long. 15 months after I moved, I got a call from an unknown number. Georgia area code. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Jenna, it's Mandy, Jake's wife. I blinked. I'd never met her. Never spoken to her. I hadn't even gone to the wedding. Hey, Mandy, what's up? I'm not calling to fight. I just want to ask you one thing. Are you really never going to help your family again? I didn't say anything. Do you have any idea what it's like down here? Your mom cries every single day. Your dad can barely walk some days. His knee hurts so bad. Jake's working 60 hours a week and still can't keep up with the bills. He's lost like 15 pounds. Mandy, what do you want me to say? I want you to come home. Just for a visit. Let them see you're okay. Let them stop worrying. Mandy, let me ask you something. Yeah? If I come home, will they let me leave again? Silence. Silence was the answer. If I went back, they'd hide my passport. They'd lock me in the house. They'd guilt-trip me until I caved, until I moved back, until I was stuck there forever, waiting on them hand and foot. They'd say, "What's so great about Canada anyway? Find a nice local boy, settle down, be close to your family." They'd say, "Jake's baby needs a babysitter. You're the aunt. It's your job." They'd say, "Your dad's sick. Your mom's sick. Who's going to take care of them if not you?" They'd nail me to that small town forever, like I'd never left. "Thanks for calling, Mandy," I said. "But I'm not coming home. You're so cold." "No," I said. "They're just greedy." I hung up. And this time, I didn't hesitate. I blocked the number. Chapter 6. 2 years after I landed in Canada, I decided to apply for citizenship. It wasn't that I didn't love the US. I did. But I needed roots. I needed to know this place was mine, that no one could drag me back. The requirement was 3 years of physical presence in 5. I was still building up my days, but I started studying for the citizenship test early. I read the Discover Canada guide so many times I could recite it from memory. While I was building my new life, back in Hazelwood, everything was falling apart. I didn't find out about most of it right away. I heard it from Amy, Uncle Ray's daughter, my cousin. We'd never been super close growing up, but she'd never been cruel to me either. She'd moved to Chattanooga after college and barely came home. She was pretty much checked out of the family drama. One day, I got a DM on Facebook from her. "Jenna, it's Amy. Don't block me. I just thought you should know what's going on." I didn't block her. I wrote back. "Okay." She sent me a long message and I sat there reading it for a long time. Turns out things had gone downhill fast after I left. Once Mandy moved in, she'd started picking fights about the houses. 3 townhomes, but only the 1 bedroom was actually occupied. Mom and Dad lived there. The other 2 were rented out, and Jake collected all the rent money. Mandy decided that wasn't good enough. She demanded Jake move them into the 3-bedroom unit. Fix it up nice. Jake did it. Then she demanded Mom and Dad sign the 1 bedroom over to Jake too. It's all gonna be his anyway, right? What's the point in waiting? Mom and Dad hesitated. So Mandy threw fits, slammed doors, cried about how she'd married into a family that didn't even give her a real home. Jake took her side, screamed at Mom and Dad, called them selfish. Dad's knee flared up so bad he was bedridden for 3 days. In the end, they caved. They signed the one-bedroom over two. All three houses were now Jake's. Mom and Dad were just tenants in their own son's house, and it didn't stop there. Once Mandy got pregnant, she quit her job at the factory. The whole family was living on Jake's factory paycheck plus the rent from 2 townhomes. It was tight, but doable, if they'd been careful. But Mandy wasn't careful. She bought designer bags, got her nails done every week, complained about Mom's cooking, and said they needed a maid. Mom bit her tongue the whole time, because the houses were in Jake's name now. She was scared if she upset Mandy, they'd throw her out. Jake was stuck in the middle, taking heat from both sides. He started drinking more, started snapping at everyone. Amy ended her message with, "You made the right call getting out." I stared at those 5 words for a long time. You made the right call. Coming from Amy, someone who wasn't on my side, someone who was just watching from the outside, meant more than any validation I'd ever gotten. If even the neutral cousin thought I was right, that meant they'd really gone too far. I didn't write her back. Not because I was mad, but because I didn't know what to say. Good. They deserve it. Felt mean. I don't care. Felt like a lie. I closed the app, went to the kitchen, and made myself a cup of tea. Outside, the maple tree was in full fall color, blazing bright red like it was on fire. I thought about that old maple tree in our front yard. About Jake saying it was his. About Dad saying it would always be Jake's. I wondered if it was even still there. They'd cleared the whole farm for the highway, probably cut it down. I didn't feel sad about it. That tree was never mine anyway. 6 months later, Amy messaged me again. This time, the news was worse. Jake had gotten into a fight at a bar. Drunk, mouthing off, took a swing at some guy. The guy fell back, hit his head on the concrete, broke 2 ribs, and ruptured his spleen. Needed emergency surgery. The guy pressed charges. Jake got arrested for aggravated assault. He was looking at real jail time. Mandy panicked. 6 months pregnant, she ran to Mom and Dad screaming that they had to fix it. Mom and Dad didn't know how to fix it. The most powerful person they knew was the county clerk. They went to Uncle Ray for help. He said they needed a lawyer, and they needed to pay the guy off to get a plea deal. The victim's family wanted $50,000 for a civil settlement. No deal. No reduced charges. Mandy said they didn't have the money. 3 houses, but you can't sell a house overnight. And even if they could, Mandy would never let them. Those houses were her security. Mom and Dad drained their entire retirement savings, borrowed from every relative they could, scraped together $22,000, still $28,000 short. That's when Mom remembered me. Amy told me Mom had posted in the family group chat, "Jenna's got money up in Canada. Can't somebody reach her? Her brother's in trouble. She can't just let him rot." Uncle Ray had replied, "You really gonna ask her for help after everything?" Uncle Dale, "Let it go, Carol. She ain't gonna help." Aunt Linda, "Yeah, y'all gave every last thing to Jake. You can't be surprised now. Mom didn't say anything after that, but she still tried to reach me. She somehow found my work email and sent me an email. It was long, full of typos, but it all boiled down to one thing. Your brother needs $28,000. Help him." I stared at the email. No anger, no sadness, just this deep, tired feeling. It was always the same. They only remembered I existed when they needed something. When things were good, I was the daughter who'd marry out, the outsider. When things were bad, I was family. I was a Mitchell. It was my duty to help. I closed the email. Didn't reply. Next day, another email. Then another. Then another. every day for a week. The messages got meaner and meaner. From "please help your brother" to "how can you be so heartless" to "your father's gonna have a heart attack over this." I didn't answer a single one. After a week, the emails stopped. Instead, I got a certified letter in the mail. Same messy handwriting, same yellow paper. But this time, the ink was smudged in places like tears had fallen on the page. "Jenna, I'm begging you. If Jake goes to jail, this family falls apart. Mandy says she'll leave. Take the baby with her. Your dad cries every night. His knee's so bad he can barely get out of bed. I know you're mad at us, but he's your brother. I'm on my knees begging you. Please." At the very bottom, scrawled like an afterthought, "I was wrong." I stared at those 3 words and suddenly I was crying. Not because I was touched. Because I was furious. An apology doesn't mean anything when you only say it because you're desperate. If she'd said those words the day they handed the houses to Jake, I might have softened. Might have forgiven them. But she didn't. She only said it when she had nowhere else to turn. It wasn't remorse. It was begging. I put the letter back in the envelope, locked it in my desk drawer. Then I messaged Amy back. "Thanks for telling me, but I'm not sending money." Amy wrote back right away. "I figured. Just thought you deserved to know. Thanks. Hey, can I say something?" "Go ahead. You're different than you used to be. Back in high school, you never would have stood up for yourself like this." I thought about it for a minute. Then I wrote back. "I'm not harder. I just don't have to be soft anymore." I put my phone down and went out to the balcony to watch the maple leaves fall. They drifted down one by one, covering the sidewalk in red. A little kid walked by with his mom, picked up a big one, held it up to show her. She knelt down, smiled, and tucked it behind his ear. He laughed and grabbed her hand, and they ran off together. I watched them, and I thought about what freedom really means. It's not getting to do whatever you want. It's getting to choose. Choose to forgive or not forgive. Choose to help or not help. Choose to stay or leave. And no one gets to make that choice for you. Chapter 7. Here's how Jake's case ended. Uncle Ray found a local lawyer who negotiated with the victim's family. They got the settlement down from $50,000 to $37,000. Mom and Dad put in their $22,000. Mandy went to her parents and borrowed the other $15,000. They paid. The victim signed the release. Jake got probation. No jail time. But he lost his job. The factory found out about the arrest, and even though it was probation, they fired him for workplace conduct violations. With no job, Jake just sat around the house all day, drank beer, played video games, got meaner and meaner. Mandy had the baby, a boy, a grandson, the Mitchell family heir. Mom held that baby and tried to smile, but it never reached her eyes, because Mandy made it clear she'd watch the baby, but all the costs, formula, diapers, doctor visits, daycare someday, came out of the family's pocket. What family money? There wasn't any left. The rent from the 2 townhomes barely covered groceries and bills. Jake was unemployed, drinking through what little savings they had left. Mandy still spent like there was no tomorrow, still bought what she wanted. They fought every single day. Screaming matches so loud the neighbors called the cops twice. One night, Jake got drunk and hit her. Mandy packed a bag, took the baby, and went back to her parents' house. Said she was filing for divorce. Mom went over to Mandy's parents' house to beg her to come back. Mandy's mom stood on the front porch in front of the whole neighborhood and yelled at her at the top of her lungs. "Your family's a joke. 3 houses and not a dime to your name. Your son's a deadbeat. Your daughter ran off to another country, and you 2 old fools got nothing to show for any of it." Mom stood there red-faced, mouth flapping, and couldn't say a word back. Mandy did come back eventually, Not because she forgave Jake, because her parents couldn't afford to support her and the baby either. But they slept in separate rooms after that. Barely spoke. Amy told me all of it. Her voice was heavy, like she couldn't believe what her own family had turned into. Jenna, it's so stupid. They fought so hard to give everything to Jake, and now he's miserable. They're all miserable. They're worse off than they were before the settlement. I didn't say anything, but I thought to myself, that's what happens when you raise a kid to be entitled. You pour every resource into your son because you think he'll carry on the family name. Instead, he grows up spoiled and useless. You push your daughter away because you think she'll leave anyway. Instead, she builds a better life than any of you ever dreamed of. You think you're protecting the family. Really, you're destroying it. I didn't say it out loud. It would have sounded like I was gloating. And okay, maybe I was a little. Just a little. 3 years after I landed, I got my permanent resident card. My PR card. Official. I took the day off work and went to Stanley Park. There's a seawall path that goes all the way around the park. Takes about 2 hours to walk the whole thing. I walked it twice. The first lap, I thought about the past. About the 7-year-old girl kneeling under a maple tree, holding torn-up leaves, too scared to cry. About the 22-year-old kid with a duffel bag, getting on a bus to Atlanta, telling herself she'd make it on her own. About the 26-year-old woman signing away 3 houses, then getting on a plane to another country, not looking back. The second lap, I thought about the future, about putting down roots here, about maybe buying a bigger place someday, planting my own maple tree, about traveling, about Europe, about Asia, about all the places I'd never gotten to see, about maybe finding someone, if I was lucky. Someone who didn't think daughter or wife came before person. When I finished the second lap, I sat down on a bench. Next to me was an older Chinese woman, probably in her 70s, silver hair pulled back neat. She smiled at me. All by yourself today? Yep. Brave girl, moving out here all alone. I smiled a little. Not brave, just had no other choice. She nodded, like she knew exactly what I meant. I came here from Hong Kong when I was your age, didn't speak a word of English, knew nobody. 30 years later, my grandkids are in university. Was it worth it? I asked. She thought about it. Worth ain't about the end result. Worth is about whether you regret it. Do you regret it? Not one bit, she said, smiling. If I'd stayed home, I'd be cooking for my son and his wife right now, working my fingers to the bone, and nobody'd say thank you. I laughed. She stood up, brushed off her pants, wished me good luck, and walked away. I sat there for a long time after she left, watching the sun set over the water. The sky turned gold and pink, light dancing on the waves like scattered coins. I took out my phone and took a picture. Just the water and the sunset. No people, but I was there. Chapter 8. 4 years after I moved to Vancouver, I made a big move. I changed jobs. The new place was a big e-commerce company, headquarters in Vancouver, selling all over North America and Europe. I applied for supply chain manager. The base salary was $85,000 CAD plus bonus and stock options. In the interview, the hiring manager asked me, "Why are you leaving your current job?" I said, "I'm ready for a bigger challenge." He smiled and said, "You're hired." My first day, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 12th floor and looked out at downtown Vancouver. Tall buildings, busy streets. It reminded me a little of Atlanta, but not quite. Atlanta's energy was loud, crowded, warm. Vancouver's energy was quiet, sharp, a little distant. I liked the distance. Nobody asked me how much I made. Nobody pestered me about when I'd get married. Nobody told me I was getting too old to be single. Here, I was just Jenna. Not Jake's sister. Not mom and dad's daughter. Not the waste of money girl. Just me. The woman who'd moved to a new country with 2 suitcases and built a career from scratch. Once I started the new job, everything settled down. Steady income, steady schedule, steady mood. I had free time now. On weekends, I went to the gym, went hiking, went to the grocery store, and cooked myself nice dinners. I even bought a pothos plant for the living room. It grew like crazy. One Saturday, I was at the grocery store reaching for a bag of spinach, and someone else reached for the same one at the same time. We both pulled our hands back. We both said, "Sorry, you go ahead." We looked at each other and laughed. "You're a spinach person too," he said. "Yeah, iron." Same. His name was Liam. He had a master's in computer science from UBC, had moved to Vancouver from Toronto a year prior, worked at a tech startup. We chatted for a minute, realized we lived in the same neighborhood, and exchanged numbers. After that, we started running into each other at the grocery store, then at the gym, then on the walking trail by the park. Then we started getting dinner together. Then we started dating. Liam was quiet, didn't talk much, but everything he said mattered. Most guys, when I told them I'd moved to Canada alone with no family, either acted like I was some kind of hero or looked at me like I must be running from something. Liam just said, "That must have been really hard." That's it. 5 words. No over-the-top sympathy. No weird admiration. Just a simple, honest acknowledgement that my life hadn't been easy. I love that about him. The quiet understanding. 3 months in, I brought him back to my place. He stood in the doorway for a second, looked around. "You live here alone? 2 bedrooms?" "Yep." "Doesn't it feel empty?" "Nope. It's mine. Every inch of it. I earned it." He nodded. Didn't push it. Inside, he noticed the oil painting I had hanging above the couch. It was a painting of maple leaves. Bright, burning red. I'd bought it from a street artist for $25. "You like maple leaves?" he asked. "Yeah. Why?" I thought about it for a second. Because nobody owns them. They just grow, turn red, fall off. No one gets to say, "This one's mine." Liam looked at me. Didn't ask any more questions. He just said, "Then I'll take you to see the maples every fall." It was the sweetest thing anyone had ever said to me, not because it was grand, because he said, every fall. Every fall meant a future that included me. 5 years after I landed, I got my citizenship. At the ceremony, I raised my right hand and repeated the oath. "I swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, King of Canada." When I said the word faithful, something twinged in my chest. Faithful. I'd been faithful to my family once, faithful to the Mitchell name, faithful to the stupid rule that daughters had to be quiet and grateful and give up everything for their brothers. And all that loyalty got me was 3 houses taken away, a $30,000 ask, and a lifetime of being an afterthought. Now I was pledging loyalty to a new country. It wasn't that I hated the US. It was that the part of the US that mattered, the family, the home, the roots, had already rejected me. So I found a new place to put down roots. When the ceremony ended, they handed me my citizenship certificate, a piece of paper with my name on it, Jenna Mitchell, officially a Canadian citizen. It wasn't abandoning where I came from. It wasn't forgetting. It was just a girl who'd been pushed out by her own family, finally finding a place where she belonged. I walked out of the immigration building and took a deep breath. Vancouver air. Cool, clean, free. Liam was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps. He was holding something. Not roses, but a handful of bright red maple leaves. He handed them to me. "Congratulations, official Canadian." I took them and smiled. "You know, this is the first time anyone's ever given me flowers." Liam blinked. Then he said, Then I'll give you some every year. You already said you'd take me to see maples every year. Both. I'll take you to see them, and I'll give you some. That's the same gift twice. But you like maple leaves. Fair point. We stood there on the steps laughing like idiots for a good minute. Chapter 9. After I got citizenship, I decided to take a trip back to the US. Not to make up, not to visit. I had to go tie up loose ends, close my old bank accounts, update my social security records, finalize all the legal stuff. Liam asked me, "You sure you want to go alone?" "Yep. This is something I have to do by myself." He nodded. Didn't argue. He knew some roads you have to walk by yourself. I booked a direct flight from Vancouver to Atlanta, then a connecting flight back to the small regional airport near Hazelwood. 15 hours total. I barely slept the whole flight. Not nervous. Just strange. Like going to watch a movie you already know the ending to, but you still want to see the scenes. When I landed back in Georgia, it was 5 a.m. I stood in the airport terminal for a minute, listening to people talk, hearing that thick Southern accent all around me. It felt surreal. 5 years ago, I'd left this country from this exact airport. 2 suitcases, one-way ticket, alone. 5 years later, I was back. Canadian passport, 6-figure job, a home waiting for me in Vancouver. I'd changed so much. Had they? The flight to Hazelwood was only an hour and a half. When we descended, I looked out the window at the little town below. It had changed a little. A few new strip malls, a new high school, a couple of apartment buildings, but it still felt the same. Slow, dusty, stuck in time. I got off the plane, grabbed a taxi, and headed straight to the bank and Social Security office to handle my paperwork. The taxi driver was a middle-aged guy with a baseball cap, chatty as anything. "Where you comin' from, miss?" "Vancouver." "Whoa, Canada. Cold up there, huh?" "Not really. Vancouver's pretty mild." "Here to see family?" "Just here to take care of some business." "All by yourself? Your folks ain't picking you up?" I didn't answer. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, got the hint, and shut up. At the bank, I was in the middle of closing my old account when the door burst open. Mom. She'd somehow found out I was in town, probably ran into someone who knew someone at the bank. She'd run all the way there, by the looks of her. 5 years had not been kind to her. Her hair was almost all gray. Her face was lined deep, like someone had carved wrinkles into it with a knife. She was hunched over a little. She wore a faded flannel shirt and muddy work boots, like she'd been out in the yard and ran straight over. When she saw me, she froze. I froze too. We stood there across the linoleum floor, staring at each other for 10 long seconds. Then she started crying. "Jenna!" Her voice was rough, gravelly, nothing like the sharp, loud voice I remembered. Mom had never sounded weak in my entire life. She was the woman who yelled at grocery store managers, who argued with the bill collector, who ran the whole house with an iron fist. Now she was standing there crying like a lost little kid. For half a second, I almost reached for her. Just half a second. "Mom," I said. My voice was calm, like I was talking to a stranger. "Jenna, baby, why didn't you tell me you were comin'? I woulda picked you up, I'm just here to take care of paperwork. I'm leaving today." You're closing all your accounts?" She glanced at the papers on the counter and her face went white. "You're really never comin' back? You're giving up on your own country?" "Mom, I'm a Canadian citizen now." "You ungrateful little—" Her voice went sharp, then cracked. "Your daddy's gonna die when he hears this." "Mom, I'm here to finish this paperwork, and then I'm leaving. That's all." "No, you don't." She lunged forward and grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my sleeve. "You're coming home with me. Your daddy misses you something awful. Jake's sorry. We're all sorry. Just come home." I didn't yank my arm away. I just looked down at her hand. That hand had weighed produce at the grocery store for 20 years to put food on the table. That hand had signed the property deeds over to Jake without a second thought. That hand had never once braided my hair or wiped my tears or held me when I was hurt. "Mom, let go," I said. "No, not till you promise to come home. Mom, let go." My voice was louder this time. Firm. She held on tighter. The bank teller stood up and came over. "Ma'am, please, this is a place of business." Mom ignored her. She was clinging to my arm like I was the last life raft on a sinking ship. I took a deep breath. "Mom, listen to me." She looked up, eyes red and puffy, face streaked with tears. "5 years ago, you and Dad gave all 3 houses to Jake. You made me sign a paper saying I had no right to any of it. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I signed it. Then you called me and told me I owed Jake $30,000 for his house. I told you I didn't have it, and you called me a liar. When Jake got in trouble, you emailed me every single day begging for $28,000 more. I didn't send it. You're not grabbing onto me right now because you miss me. You're grabbing on because you need me. You need me to take care of you when you're old. You need me to send money. You need me to carry the burden you and Dad dumped on Jake and then realized he can't handle. But have you ever once wondered what I needed?" Her mouth flapped open and shut. Not a sound came out. "I needed fair. You told me daughters don't get fair. I needed respect. You told me to be quiet and be good. I needed love. You told me to stop making a fuss. So I left. I went somewhere I could get those things. I don't hate you, Mom, but I don't owe you anything either. You chose to give every last thing to Jake. That was your call. I sent money home every month for 4 years. That's more than enough to pay you back for raising me. From today on, we're even." I said it quiet, but clear. Then I gently pried her fingers off my arm, one by one. She stood there, hand hanging in midair, like she'd been frozen. I turned back to the teller. "Can we finish this, please?" The teller glanced at Mom, then at me, nodded, and went back to the paperwork. Mom stood behind me the whole time. She didn't yell. She didn't say anything, but I could hear her breathing. Short, ragged, like she was trying so hard not to scream or cry or both. When everything was done, I put all the papers in my bag and turned to leave. I paused when I walked past her. "Take care of yourself, Mom." Then I walked out the bank doors. Behind me, I heard a quiet, broken sob, like something shattering. I didn't look back. Chapter 10. Outside, the Georgia sun was so bright it made my eyes hurt. I stood on the steps for a minute, letting my eyes adjust, then pulled out my phone and texted Liam. "All done." 3 seconds later, he texted back. "Good." 3 seconds after that, "I'm home waiting for you." Home. That one word made my throat feel tight. Not sad tight. Warm tight. Somewhere across an international border, there was a person who called a place home and meant me, too. That was enough. I put my phone away and hailed a taxi to the airport. We drove down Main Street, past the old neighborhood where I grew up. The big oak tree at the end of the street was still there, but the old house was gone, torn down for a parking lot. I stared at the empty spot through the window, trying to remember what it looked like. But the memories were soft around the edges, like an old photo left out in the rain. The 7-year-old girl kneeling under the maple tree, holding torn leaves, too scared to cry. The 15-year-old hiding under her covers, listening to Jake play his new video game next door, too broke to buy a new textbook. The 18-year-old dragging her suitcase out the door, nobody there to see her off. The 22-year-old sitting on her Atlanta apartment floor, counting her paycheck over and over to see how much she could send home. The 26-year-old walking through airport security, never looking back. All those girls flashed through my head like a movie on fast forward. Then the picture settled on me now. 31 years old, sitting in the back of a taxi, holding a Canadian passport, watching the town fade away behind me. "We're here, miss," the driver said. "Thanks." I paid him, grabbed my bag, and walked into the airport. Check-in, security, customs. Every step felt like closing a door. At customs, the agent looked at my Canadian passport, then at me. "Visiting family?" "Sort of." "When will you be back?" "Not sure." He smiled, stamped my passport, and handed it back. "Safe travels." "Thanks." I found a seat by the window in the boarding area. Outside, the planes sat quiet on the tarmac like big sleeping animals. My phone buzzed. A Facebook message from Amy. "Jenna, Mom called Dad crying for an hour. Said you told her off at the bank and you're never coming back." I thought for a minute, then wrote back. "I didn't tell her off. I just told her we're even." "She says you closed all your accounts. You really never coming home?" "Nope." "Jenna, you really okay with that?" "Amy, I might come back someday as a tourist. See what's changed. But that house? That family? I'm never going back to that." "I get it. Jenna, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. You made me realize something too. I used to think that's just how family is, but it's garbage. Girls deserve better than that." I smiled. "You're right. Even the water people throw away can turn into something big." I hit send, then turned my phone off. They called boarding. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked to the gate. Another one-way ticket. But this time, I wasn't running away. I was going home. When the plane took off, I watched Georgia get smaller and smaller below me, until it faded into a blur of green and brown. The girl next to me was a college student, maybe 20, on her way to Vancouver for a study abroad program. She was so nervous her hands were shaking. "Are you moving to Canada for good?" she asked. "Yep, I live there." "Wow, that's so brave. Did you go alone?" "Yep, all by myself." "Weren't you scared?" I thought about it for a second. I was. But then I realized the scariest thing isn't being alone in a new country. It's being surrounded by family and still feeling alone. She nodded slowly, like she didn't fully get it yet, but she would someday. I didn't explain. Some things you can only learn with time, like how home isn't a place. It's a feeling. It's being seen, being respected, being loved. Without that, even the biggest house isn't home. With that, even a tiny basement apartment is. The plane landed in Vancouver at 3 p.m. local time. I walked out into the arrivals hall and I saw Liam immediately. He was standing by the exit holding a sign. It said, "Welcome home," and under the words, he'd drawn a big red maple leaf. I walked over, dropped my bag, and hugged him. "I'm home." "Yep. Welcome back." "So what's waiting for me at home?" "Spinach, ribs, that ice cream you like." "Anything else?" "Me." I laughed and pressed my face into his shoulder. He smelled like laundry detergent, clean and fresh, like Vancouver air. On the drive home, we passed through Richmond. The maple trees along the road were bright red. "Look," Liam said. "The leaves are perfect this year." "They are." "This fall, let's drive up to the Rockies. The maples up there are insane." "Okay." "Every year." "Okay." We pulled into the apartment complex and parked. I got out and looked up at my building. 5th floor, the balcony with the pothos plant. The vines were long now, hanging down, swaying in the wind. Liam grabbed my suitcase and we walked to the elevator together. There was a mirror in the elevator. I looked at myself. Short hair, no makeup, hoodie and jeans. Calm eyes. 5 years ago, Jenna had the same short hair, the same no makeup face. But her eyes had always had that careful look, like she was ready to step back at any second. That look was gone now. She didn't have to step back anymore. She was exactly where she belonged. When we walked in the door, I left my suitcase by the entrance, kicked off my shoes, and walked into the living room. Everything was the same as when I left. Light wood floors, white walls, black quartz counters. The maple leaf painting hung on the wall, bright and burning. "You hungry?" Liam asked, heading for the kitchen. "I'll cook. I'll help." "Nah, you just got off a plane. Go rest. I'm not tired. I want to cook with you." He smiled. "Fine. You can wash the spinach." I went to the sink, turned on the water, and washed the leaves one by one. The water was cool on my fingers. Liam chopped ribs next to me. His knife skills were terrible. All the pieces were lumpy and uneven. "Your chopping is ugly," I said. "Tastes fine." "Your standards are so low." "I have high standards for important things." "Like what?" "Like picking a girlfriend." I rolled my eyes and handed him the spinach. He took it and squeezed my hand for a second. "Your hands are freezing. Wash them in cold water. Use warm next time. Wastes electricity. I'll pay the electric bill. Your money is my money." "Fair." We cooked for 40 minutes and put 3 dishes on the table: spinach with garlic, sweet and sour ribs, tomato egg soup. Simple, but warm. We sat across from each other, clinking our bowls together. Outside, the maple tree glowed red in the sunset. I took a bite of rib. Sweet and sour. Perfect. "Good?" Liam asked. "Really good." "Come on, I'm not that good of a cook." "It is good." It wasn't the cooking. It was that every part of this meal was my choice. The city I lived in. The man I was with. The life I'd built. Nobody had forced it on me. Nobody had decided it for me. Nobody had told me I didn't deserve it. Every bite tasted like freedom. After dinner, I stood out on the balcony, looking at the skyline. Vancouver sunsets are pink and orange, like someone spilled a whole paint box across the sky. I pulled out my phone to take a picture. When I opened my photos, I saw old screenshots I'd saved. Mom's angry emails, Amy's messages, Jake's voicemail transcripts. I hesitated for half a second. Then I deleted all of them. Every last one. When they were gone, my chest felt light. Empty, but in a good way. Filled up with something I couldn't name. Peace, maybe. Or just relief. Liam came out and handed me a mug of hot tea. "Thinking about calling her?" "Maybe someday. Not today." "Whenever you want. I'm good with whatever you decide." I looked at him. His eyes were soft, clear. No agenda. "No, but she's your mom." "No, blood is thicker than water, just whatever you want." I smiled. "Not today." "Okay." He didn't push. He just stood next to me, watching the sunset with me. Our shadows stretched long across the balcony floor, tangled together. You couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. But it didn't matter. When the sun went down, there was just a faint pink glow left on the horizon, like a quiet sigh. I turned and went inside, closing the balcony door behind me. The living room was lit with warm yellow light. The dishes were still on the table. The pothos plant sat in the corner, growing, growing. The maple leaf painting glowed in the lamplight, warm and bright. I remembered a quote I'd read once somewhere. Some people spend their whole lives healing from their childhood. Some people spend their whole childhood healing them for life. I was the first kind. But that was okay. Healing takes time, but I was getting there, and I'd chosen every step of the path myself. That night, I slept like a rock. No dreams, no nightmares. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight was streaming through the curtains, painting a gold stripe across the floor. I rolled over. Liam was still asleep, breathing slow, a tiny smile on his face, like he was having a good dream. I didn't wake him. I got up quiet and walked out to the living room. There were little drops of water on the pothos leaves, from when I'd sprayed them the night before. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtains. The maple tree outside had dropped a few more leaves, covering the grass like a red carpet. Down below, an old lady was walking her golden retriever puppy. The puppy kept picking up maple leaves and bringing them to her. She'd kneel down, pat his head, take the leaf, and put it in her bag. I watched them, and I smiled, because I realized I wasn't that little girl under the tree anymore. That little girl grew up. She walked out of that yard, flew across an ocean, and built a life of her own. She didn't need anyone's permission anymore. She didn't need anyone's apology. She didn't need anyone's approval. All she needed was herself, and all the things she'd chosen. I turned and walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, pulled out eggs and milk and fruit. I was going to make a big breakfast: toast, eggs, fruit salad, coffee, enough for two. Because I wasn't alone anymore. But even if I was, it would have been okay, because the darkest part of the road was already behind me, and whatever came next, whether I walked it alone or with someone, would be bright.